So another Patreon Q&A. Thank you again, Patreon, so much for your support and for your questions. If you are watching this and you are not a Patreon, come join us on Patreon. We have a lovely community there, and you can get all sorts of different extra content like exclusive videos, a document full of patching ideas and techniques, VCV patch files, VCV preset files, and more and more and more. And also access to our Discord community where we have monthly challenges with giveaways, with prizes. And I want to thank Peth Set for donating his 3 collections, commercial collections for the Discord giveaways, for the Discord challenges. So if you are a Patreon, come join us on Discord. If you are not a Patreon, come join us on Patreon and on Discord. It's fun, lots of extra things, and a Discord, really helpful Discord community. Yes, so let's start with the first question. So the first question is coming from Fik. Hello, Omri. I'd love you to listen to this drone album and share ways to handle long, very long notes that fade in and out in a very organic way. So first of all, I will leave a link in the description to this track, lovely track. I always discover new music thanks to you. So thank you again. There will be a link if you want to have a listen. And I have here some things ready. Of course, this will be available. The patch will be available, all of the patches on Patreon if you want to download them and have a closer look. So there are a few ways you can try this in VCV, and there are also a couple of ways in hardware you can give this a try. So in VCV, we have, of course, there are many ways, but I like using the clocked random gates. Basically, you clock this module and then you get 8 gates with probability. So you can change the probability of the different gates, right? And you can use these gates to fade in and out different voices, again, in a very organic way. So what I have here, I have a modulation feedback loop with an LFO and sample and hold. The LFO will clock the sample and hold, which will modulate the LFO via its FM input. So the timing is always changing. Of course, you can also play with this. This is clocking the random gates. And there is a polyphonic output that I'm using here. Right, so we have 8 channels of gates, this is going to a slew limiter. Of course, gates are either on or off. I want something also in between. I want sort of glides. So I'm using a slew limiter to smoothen out the gates. And also here you can play with the timings. And then I have here a polyphonic voice with Bazel just set to different constant notes. Right, and you can see on the VCA how the voices come in and out. I use the VCA just because it's more visual, but you can use also a mixer. You can use the gates directly also to fade voices in and out with the Mixmaster, for example. Right, so this will sound like this. Let's wait for it. Right, and again, you can play with the timings of the slew limiter and make this even longer. I didn't want to make it too long here because I didn't want to wait so long in the video. But you can play with the timings and get all sorts of different textures and all sorts of different results. Right, you can also set different slew times to the different gates. So some notes will come in quicker, some notes will come in slower. On the track you sent me, I'm pretty sure that he took this idea or some idea of bringing in notes and he recorded it onto tape, and then he took it an octave down and all of the tape goodness got added into this. So this is what I did here. I recorded these few notes into Simpliciter, took it an octave down. It's also playing in reverse, and it doesn't matter so much in this case. And I added also the expander with some wow, right? The pitch will move up and down a bit. So it will sound like this. Right, and you can record, of course, longer notes also, longer samples. Here I have 35 seconds. You can record 3 minutes of this. Take it an octave down. You have like 6 minutes which is quite nice. Another thing you can try, and this, if you want to do this in hardware, right, you don't have all of this polyphony and everything fancy schmancy like we have in VCVRack, right? But what you can try is you can use, for example, LFOs to bring in and out voices, different notes, and so on. So here I have a sample and hold, again, generating pitch. I have the Instruo harmonic generating a chord from this. And then 3 oscillators, Neoni, TSL, and Tona, all from Instruo. And then together with the mixer, I bring in and out the different voices with an LFO, with Oct in this case. Right, and again, also here you can modulate, for example, the LFO, and you can also, very nice, and you can also record this again into tape, sampler, whatever, and take it an octave down, so changes are happening slower, and you get this all warble and wow and flutter sort of sound. Right, another idea you can try is using a delay. If you have just one oscillator or you want to experiment with just one oscillator, but still create polyphony, still have notes coming in and out, right, you can use a delay, set the feedback quite high, so the notes will fade out quite slowly. Right, and then you can build like this polyphony and voices coming in and out. In this case, I have a sort of a krell patch, a variation on a krell patch, right, a looping envelope, being modulated, right, so the timings change, and this is also generating notes, and it's going through the chronoblob too. Right, polyphony. Right, so like this, again, you can play with the timings, but like this you can have notes coming in and out, slowly fading out. Really nice, fading out slowly. And again, try also this to record somewhere and take it an octave down so it plays also slower. Right, so those are a few things you can try. Again, the patch will be available on Patreon if you want to download it. Let's move on. The next question is coming from CP Geisen. Hi. My question is there a way to decrease voltage one defined step at a time? Meaning, I want to add 1 volt or negative 1 volt at each end of cycle, stepping up or down the voltage by the same amount each end of cycle. So I have 2 solutions in VCVRack. First of all, there is a dedicated module called Pile from Sturmelder. I will leave a link in the description to where you can get the Sturmelder collection. It's not in the library. So there will be a link to it. And basically you can set here at the step, you can set the voltage you want it to step in. So here I have it set to 1. And then you can either, with one trigger, you can take it up by 1 volt and another trigger take it down. Right, and like this you can create, you can just use the end of cycle to which one that you want, or you can, for example, alternate between them with some sort of flip-flop or a Bernoulli gate and do this randomly, right? But this is probably the easiest solution in VCV. Basically, one trigger goes up 1 volt, one trigger goes down 1 volt, and you can change it. It can be 1 volt, 2 volts, 3 volts, whatever, also in between. So this is the easiest, I guess. If you know already in the order in which you want this to happen, you know, okay, you want one end of cycle, take it up 1 volt, another end of cycle, take it another volt up, another end of cycle, take it 1 volt down. If you know this, it's really easy to program a sequence. In VCV, all you have to do is right-click, you hit 1, and it's set exactly to 1 volt, or -1 or -1, and it's set exactly to -1 volt. Unlike in hardware, in VCV, everything is perfectly calibrated, so to speak, right? So if you go step by step, if you know what you want, you can go step by step and have, right, each end of cycle basically trigger the sequencer or clock the sequencer so it can advance one step, and then you know exactly what's going on. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a solution to do something like this in hardware without dedicated modules like Pile, just to take a few modules and build from them a system that will take this, that will make it go 1 volt up or down. I couldn't find a solution. I tried with switches, precision adders, mixers, all sorts of different things, and I couldn't find a solution how it can go just 1 volt up or down. If you are watching this, if you are watching this and you have a solution, please write it in the comments. I would love to have a look and try this myself in hardware or also in VCV, but with not dedicated modules. But yeah, Pile or a sequencer if you know where you want to go. The next question is coming from Marcus. Hi Marcus, any suggestions on how to make cool Pluck sounds together with a delay? All right, so you can use, I have here a few examples. You can use a burst of noise to excite a delay. This is also called carpless strong synthesis. Basically a short burst, a really short burst of noise to a delay that has high feedback, short delay times. Let me demonstrate this actually with the delay from VCV, right? And then you start getting those string-like sounds, and the feedback control will control the decay. So if you turn it quite low, or some low level, it will be also really short, like a plucky sound. So here I have white noise going to a VCA, and I have a really short envelope controlling this VCA. I'm just going to play this with my MIDI keyboard because it's easier to demonstrate. Right, so basically it will sound like this, delay going through, noise going through a delay. Right, but now I start taking the time down and the feedback up. Right, and now the time will control the pitch of this Pluck. And the feedback again, the decay. Now there are two things with this delay module. First of all, it will not follow 1 volt per octave. So if you want to play this Pluck voice with pitch also, it will be quite difficult unless you go with the sequencer step by step and tune each step. And another thing, pay attention to the pitch. I'm not going to touch the time control. Pay attention to the pitch. You will see that it will wobble up and down. In the last update, there was added movement to the time control, sort of like a tape emulation, I guess. I'm not so fond of it, but this is effect, I guess. So listen to the pitch. Right, I'm not doing anything. The pitch is going up and down, and this was added in the last update. So this is something you can try with the VCV delay. If you don't want this pitch movement, you can use something like Chronoblob 2. Right, again, high feedback, short delay times. In this case, the delay time will not go so short like the delay from VCV. Here we have really short delay times. Here it will go to 5 milliseconds. Right, but still fun. But if you want something with more control, something that you can also play with notes, you can try a comb filter. Now a comb filter, here I'm using ResComb from Volt, is basically a delay. A comb filter is basically a delay. This is how it works. And usually you can also create really cool plucky sounds with a comb filter. So what we have here, again, white noise, short envelope. Let me unmute this, right? And now I'm going to take the comb up and the feedback. Right, and again we get this sound. We can also change the decay of the noise. Right, but here we have a volt per octave input, so ResComb will follow 1 volt per octave, so you can basically play this voice. Right, so you can play it Right, and you can add even more processing to this. So for example, you can send this to a filter. Right, you can use the same envelope, for example, to open the filter. And you can also send the noise through a filter. Here I like to use a bandpass filter, right? So before it goes to the VCA, it goes to a bandpass filter. Right, and you can shape it sort of like where the string is plucked, right? Right, so you can really play with this. Again, comp filter, rescomp from Volt is a great option. There is also rescomp 2, which is a paid module, but it's also really great with built-in modulation and everything. And it will follow 1 volt per octave, and it's basically a delay, so you can also create this short burst of noise into a delay. And that's it, have fun. The next question is coming from Marcus. Hi. My question is about the new eventide note sequencer Misha. I love the concept, and watching Loopop's nice review video, it seems a unique playing experience. Are there any sequencers or groups of modules together in VCV that could create a more interval-based note selection experience like Misha? I assume they won't be just like this new hardware, but anything to shake up the note selection process would be of interest. Thank you for your time and energy. Thank you for your questions. So yes, I've been planning, I wanted for a long time since it came out and I saw it, which is not such a long time actually, but a long time, let's say, to build something like this in VCV, something that is more interval based, I guess. I still have to experiment, but I found a tonic from Rebel Tech and also another way you can create something similar. Again, patches are on Patreon if you are interested. So basically, Rebel technology also available in hardware. There is a module called tonic, and you can see there are gate inputs, and each one of them will either, here for example is add -1 semitone, add 2 semitones, add 4 semitones, 8 semitones, 16 semitones, and then here add a number of semitones that you can choose with the knob. Here I have it set to 7 semitones. And each time it's triggered, it will basically add up those intervals. And like this, you can create a sequence. In this case, I'm using Euclidean sequencers also from Rebel technology, right? To gate those intervals. This is going to the FM operator on some delay. It will sound like this. Right, so again, each time it's one of the semitones is gated, it will be added to everything else, and you get like this a sequence that is built from basically selections of or mixture of semitones. Right, which is also quite interesting. Of course, you can mix also a few tonic modules in VCV, and you can create different results, but this is something you can experiment with. Another thing you can do is use something like constants from ML, which will also output semitones. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and 12 semitones, and on the other side you have negative ones, right? So you can add up or you can add down. And then also here what I'm doing, I'm mixing them, or actually I'm mixing them and also gating them, because this is also a VCA, right? Again with the gate sequencer. Right, so whenever they are open, they will be added together. This is sequencing my voice. I just sent it also through sample and hold, just to make sure the note change happens also with the rhythm. Right, some wave folding, envelope, and modulation. It will sound like this. interesting sequence. I would never program a sequence like this with intention, but here it sounds quite interesting, and it just happened just like this by mixing semitones. Right, so again, I hope to have time soon to experiment with something like Misha and VCV, but for now you can experiment with tonic or constants, mixing semitones and gating them in all sorts of ways. The next one is from Bruno, Vox Processing. So Bruno, I'm sorry, but I can't remember if it was you that we spoke about the No More Conversations track with the nice vocals there. If it was you, yes, it's on the list. I'm sorry I don't remember, but there are many people writing me, and everything is sort of mixed in my head already, which is great. I'm happy I can help, but sometimes I just forget who wrote me what. So if it was you who wrote me about the No More Conversations track, it's on the list, and I will work on it. If it was not you, then I'm not so sure what you mean. Processing samples of vocals. I think we did it last Q&A, processing, looping, live vocals and stuff like this. So let me know what you're looking for, and I will try to help you. But if this is about the No More Conversations track, then yes, it's on the list and I will work on it. So the next question is coming from Alberto. Hi, Alberto. I love your videos. I discovered and really learned the modular with you, so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's great, amazing. Thank you. I'm happy that you enjoy my work. Thank you so much. A few days ago, I tried to recreate Rob Hordake's Blippoo Box using Wrangler. The results are cool and weird, but I was curious to see your version. Also, how do you use the modules of Hetrick CV in general? Especially those around chaos, scanner, feedback, sign. It could be nice to have some of your explanations on certain, maybe some video series. So yes, dedicated videos about different modules from Hetrick CV is a great idea. This will be added to the list. I will mention I did a while ago a patch from scratch video with Hetrick CV modules. Some of them, was with VCV1, but still most of the modules look and act the same. So you can go have a look, but yes, dedicated videos for dedicated modules is a great idea. About the Blippoo Box, I have here a small setup. I'm sure you got more or less the same. I do need more time to experiment because it's a bit more complex than what I did here, but also I added this to the list, so I hope that it will happen soon, that I will try to recreate something inspired by this lovely little box. So what I have here, I have two oscillators. Of course, this will be available also on Patreon if you want to download it. I have two oscillators cross-modulating each other. Maybe I will remove all the modulation, sort of reset this patch, right? So they are cross-modulating each other. There is also sample and hold running at audio rate. Also joining this modulation with the CV mix. This is going to the Wrangler from Hetrick CV. And then there are two bandpass filters, resonant bandpass filters, sort of a twin peak filter, if you will. Right, also with modulation coming from the Wrangler and the sample and hold to the resonance that we can mix here. Right, I got really interesting results here. Lots of different interesting rhythms. We can listen to this also a bit, but again, there's a chance you got the same result, but I will need to experiment more. So let's see what we can do with this. Add some FM. There's a famous meme about eurorack that says something bought gear for $10,000 and I can make car alarm noises. So this is more or less the but cool rhythms, you know. I mean, you can build a whole patch around this. gate it and get all sorts of different percussive. Listen to this rhythm. Right, so interesting setup. You can play with this for quite a long time. Again, it will be available on Patreon if you want to download it. It's on the list to build sort of inspired by this lovely box patch, and we will see how it goes. The next one is from Nick. Hi Nick, what are the most versatile and feature-rich function generators in the VCV library, free or paid? I've been using Geranalog's Contour 1 in hardware lately, and I'm wondering if there's something as versatile in VCV. So I had a look at this module, the Contour 1. I have to be honest, all of the modules from Geranalog look amazing, really look so interesting. Really lovely modules. Unfortunately, I couldn't find something similar in VCV. There are not so many function generators in VCV Rack, which is quite weird now that I think about it. But there is Rampage, which is basically all you need in VCV. If you want a function generator, you have everything here, not everything, but many things that you can experiment with. I love Rampage. I have it also in hardware. I use it all the time. And I always discover something new, but you can also experiment with the complex DAHD, delay, attack, hold, decay module from NIST, which is also a function generator, right? You can trigger it and it will start whatever it's doing. It has end of delay, end of decay, I guess, end of release, end of hold, end of cycle. Right, so it has all the outputs. It has built-in stereo VCA. You can chain, you can loop it even, right? We can also have it looping. We have delay, we have attack, of course, hold, right? So you have also hold time. You can scale it. You can have also negative. So if you want something like for side chaining or something like this, right, it can also be interesting. And it can also be hanged, right? So you trigger it once and it just stays up. It has also busy mode, which is quite interesting. So it will not re-trigger if you have two triggers happening right one after the other. So if I have long attack, for example, and decay, right? If I don't have it in busy mode, you see, it will just re-trigger. If I have it in busy mode, it will end its cycle and only then it will be re-triggered. So yes, quite an interesting function generator, again, with a built-in stereo VCA, which is quite cool. So yes, you can experiment with this or go with Rampage, which is also quite interesting. I hope maybe once there will be also a function generator from VCV. There were many modules added lately from VCV Rack, sort of completing the collection, the basic collection. Maybe also a function generator will be one of them. Who knows? We can only hope. The next one is from Fedor. Hi Omri. Hi Fedor. Thank you so much for your tutorials. Thank you for your support. I have a question about arrangement in VCV. I would like to merge generative patches that I try to explore and human hands apply to MIDI controller. Do you have any tips and tricks of how to control the voices that should come and go away from the stage in VCV? So this is a bit similar to what we did before with the drone patch. I believe it was the first question. Basically using gates to bring in and out voices. And this doesn't have to be just notes like we did before. It can be a whole complete setup, a whole complete patch, if you will, and bring it in and out in a generative way by using a Bernoulli gate. So basically, a Bernoulli gate will add probability to incoming gates, so you can have them with probability, perfect for generative patches. Right, so here I have a manual gate, but you can use any other gate source. Goes to the Bernoulli gate, and this is then going to a flip-flop. In a second, I will show you, you don't really have to use also a flip-flop. But this is going to a flip-flop. A flip-flop basically will get one trigger or gate, and will output it from one output, another one will output it from another output, and it will alternate between them. Which means that with each gate, once it will stay high, once it will go low. When it goes up, it will open a VCA. Again, I'm using a slew limiter because I want this to fade in and out and not just come in and out with the gate. Right, so if I click it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, it goes down, again, according to probability you set here. And then sometimes it will come in, sometimes it will go out, and so on and so forth. Now, you don't really need a flip-flop because this module, chances from Count Modular, has also latch mode, which acts a bit like a flip-flop with probability. So basically, it will output a gate either from output A or B, and it will stay high until it's changing. So you can skip also the flip-flop if you want. Just keep in mind, both of them are a bit different because here you set probability from which output it will output A or B, and here you set probability basically if it will take the gate down or high, or it will change the output. So it's a bit different how you set the probability, but you can experiment with both and have a look. Right, so here one time the gate will go up and then it will go down again according to the probability you set. And like this, you can bring in and out whole patches, a chain of modules, or just voices. Here I have an example. I have here, right, basically sample and hold sequencing the FM operator going through some delay. And I'm using this setup with the flip-flop and the slew limiter, right, to fade in and out, basically the fader on the mixer. Right? So you can see the voice will sometimes go out. Sometimes it will come in after the delay. Right? The whole process, the whole chain. And of course, you can play with the timings. You can choose different gate sources. You can do this manually. Right? Also bring in and out the voices. Right, so like this you can experiment and see what works for you. So the next one is from Thomas. Hi Thomas, I've recently watched Andrew Huang's video where he talks about the O-CTRL sequencer for Make Noise. Great sequencer, I also got one recently, lots of things to explore. And it's feature that lets you dial a custom length for each step. Is there any sequencer with this similar feature in VC VRAC? If not, do you have any idea how it can be made? Thank you. So I have a few options, and also this is on the list. So to build something similar to the O-CTRL with all of the features, not just this time feature, it's also on the list. The list is long, as you can imagine, but I have a few options that you can try. So first of all, there is Bordel, and this will work the same with Detroit. Both are from Bido, available for free. So there is an option here where you can basically change the number of pulses per step. So let's see how it sounds like. I have here, it's sequencing the FM operator. Right, 8 steps. Now I can say, for example, step number 5 will have 2 pulses. Right, so it will be longer, or I can have it 3. Right, and change like this also the other ones. Right, but what you can do, you can also increase the resolution and get even more basically resolution to work with, because here it will basically just multiply the clock. So what we can do, instead of using, I'm using here a multiplied by 2 clock, instead of using it with multiply by 2, if I, for example, multiply it by 4, and then change all of them to be by default, let's say 2, right, we get the same result. Right? Because basically I multiplied the clock by 2, but divided the steps by 2, so we have the same sequence. Right, but now I have more resolution. Right, and I can also make them quicker. Right, and all of this will be synced to the clock, but we can go even further. So if, for example, I set them all to be 4, right, set them all to be 4, and I start with a multiplied by 8 clock. So we get the same result, but now we have even more resolution. So every movement is slight, right? It's a very delicate movements, right? And you can also take here down and make them quicker. Right, and like this you can have, I mean, I think Bordel goes beyond 8 steps. I don't think, I know it goes beyond 8 steps. O-Control has only 8 steps, but still you can get interesting results like this. So this is one option, experiment with it. You can multiply the clock even by 16 and have even more resolution, right? So experiment with this. Another option is the Bötzinger, I guess, from Feller Fabrik, which is a sequencer that is all about timings. So there is no CV output, it will output only gates, I guess. This is how I saw how it's working before. And you can change the width of each gate, the repetition. So also here you can do the same trick like with Bordel or Detroit. But here there is a slider for each step where you can change the timing. So let's listen to this. Right, in this case I'm using a sequencer to change the pitch, right? But here you can make this slower and quicker. Right, and here you have even more resolution, I guess. Right, and create interesting rhythms. Also here you can change the direction. You don't really know what's going on because it doesn't say what's going on. So if it can go forward, it can go backward, or I guess it's sort of drunken walk. I mean, there is no text or something what happens, and also random. Right, so this is a bit closer even to this feature of the O-Control. Right, so you can experiment with this, but you can also do this DIY. So to speak, do it yourself. Again, all of this will be available on Patreon if you want to download it and take a closer look. So here I have the SEC3, quantizer, FM, operator, 8 steps. Right now the SEC3 has a clock or a tempo input, which means that we can use CV to manipulate this. So I can use the second row, which is just like how it's working on the O-Control. Actually, it's the third row on the O-Control where you can change the timing, right? So let's use the third row, let's say. Right, it will go to the tempo, right? And now I can control basically the timing with the third row. So I can take it down to make it slower. Or take it up to make it quicker. Right, and also here you have a built-in attenuator, so you can attenuate this, so you can have, so you can have bigger movements, let's say, right, and then just attenuate them. Right, so this is when you have a sequencer like the SEC3 that has tempo CV input. If you don't have this, you will need to use a clock that has a BPM input or CV input, right? So here I have another sequencer, the 8-step sequencer. It has no built-in clock, no BPM input, so I'm using an external clock, and this clock has a BPM CV input, so you can also here change it. So I'm going to use, for example, another sequencer, right, which is just like using another row on the O-Control, and this will go to the BPM, and now also here I can change it and have control on each and every step how long it will be. Right? So this is another option. If you do this in hardware, for example, and you don't have a clock module or a clock source that you are using that doesn't have a BPM input, you can use an LFO as your clock. And usually LFOs have also a FM or something like this. So you can just use another sequence to change the frequency of the LFO, which is basically the rate of the clock. Right? So here, this is exactly what I'm doing. Right, this is without. Right, and now I can add a modulation. Right, and control the length of each of the steps. Right, so a few options you can try. Again, this whole patch will be available in Patreon if you're interested, and go have fun. The next one is from Tobias. Hi Tobias, I would be interested if you ever tried additive synthesis techniques in VCV, and if yes, maybe you could show us a patch where you used it, an example how it works. Thank you. So there was a time where I used the Editator from Bog Audio a lot, which is basically an additive VCO, an additive oscillator. It's not really a voice, but it's an additive oscillator where you can choose how many partials, how many sine waves you stack. It can go here up to 100 sine waves that you can stack, and you can change. Maybe we can look at this also on the analyzer if you are already here. Right, so you have 1, then you have 2, and it's all in the harmonic series, right? Additive synthesis, basically adding partials, adding sine waves in the harmonic series in all sorts of different ways, because here, for example, you can change the balance of the odd and even harmonics, right? You can make them lower, you can make them stronger, you can skew, right, the relationship between the odd and the even and create all sorts of different percussive voices. I will show you everything in a second. You can change also the width, so you can change how divided they are. Also will change the pitch, of course. But again, you can use this to create all sorts of different percussive voices. So this is mainly what I used as an additive voice. Of course, you can use also polyphony and add sine waves one to another and stuff like this, but here you have everything built in, and it's quite a nice sounding oscillator. So for example, what I have here, something you can try and do is use an envelope to open the number of partials, the number of sine waves, and and make the sound brighter only with this envelope, right? So add like accents and stuff like this. So here I have a sequencer sequencing the Editator. And then also I have an envelope opening the number of partials, similar, but not really like opening a filter. Let's say it will sound like this, right? Adding sorts of accents, if you will. Right, another thing you can try is create, again, this patch will also be available on Patreon if you want to download it and have a closer look. But you can also create interesting percussive, glassy-like sounding percussive voices by skewing, right, but creating all sorts of different inharmonic relationships between the odd harmonics, even harmonics, the width control, right? Have a listen here. Maybe I will solo it. Right, very glassy, very percussive, and you can change it, right, with the width control, for example. Right, I also have here a simple bass, and I have an LFO controlling, it's called the filter here, but it's basically making the sound a bit brighter and darker according to the levels of the harmonics. It's basically a sine wave, the Editator, and unless you start Opalach, you start adding sine waves, adding partials, and playing with the different parameters. And it's also great for chords, it's also polyphonic, so I have here chords that I have coming, or one chord I have coming from the chord key, right? Also this is being gated with an envelope. Maybe I will solo this. Right, and also here I'm using the built-in sort of, it's called filter, but it's not really a filter, it's just the effect of a filter, right? Right, so there are many things you can do with this oscillator from Bog Audio. Percussive voices, chords, melodies, adding accents, all sorts of different things. Go get it. It's free. Download it, experiment with it, and have fun. The last question is coming from Jan. Hi, Jan. The modules of Path Set seem very refreshing to me. Indeed. They look very well thought and original in their concepts. However, this makes them quite challenging to get my head around. Any chance you can make short tutorials with them? So first of all, yes, I'm planning to continue making videos. And I say continue because I already have a few videos. There is a video about the Ice Tray module, which is quite a fun sort of looper, delay looper, granular, something like this. I also did a video about glass pane, which is an amazing sequencer. And there are also some live streams I did on Patreon, which are available for you to watch on Patreon. Just go to the live stream tab, and there are all of the live streams there I did on Patreon, and some of them are also on the path set. So there is one on the quantum compass, one on warp, the warp drive, and one on sifter. So there is enough already for you to watch like a day or two. And I continue making videos. There is a whole new collection from path set, the Rainbows collection, which I want to cover. And again, I will want to thank, there is a fly here. I would like to thank PathSet again for donating his commercial collections for the monthly challenges on Discord, on the Patreon Discord channel. So there is a chance for you to win one of them each month. So thank you again for donating them. Really, really thank you. Fun, interesting modules, collections. And that was it. So thank you again, patrons, for your questions. Thank you again for your support. Come join us on Discord. If you are not a Patreon, come join us on Patreon and on Discord. It's fun, lots of extra content, lovely community, and so on. Thank you again. Cheers.